Everyone, my name is Alia McDonald, and in this PowerPoint I will be showing you my research on the narration of cultural conflicts in British media outlets for the Global Community Impact module. This presentation will be split into 3 parts. In part 1 of this PowerPoint, I will illustrate how misinformation is a catalyst of conflict between religious and ethnic groups through the events of the Southport riots that occurred on the 31st of July to the 5th of August 2024. Through textual analysis, I will focus on articles reporting on the matter from The Guardian, the Daily Mail and GB News. I will focus on other catalysts such as RageBait. RageBait can be described as an intentional practice of posting that elicits anger, deepening divides between individuals in the virtual world. It can also be argued that the division is also deepened in the real world as well. Misinformation is defined as one of the virulent phenomena known to man, as it's able to transmit to continents instantly. And finally, textual analysis can be defined as a favoured method for many cultural scholars, as it can elucidate the narrative structure, symbolic arrangements, and ideological potential of media content, i.e. the Daily Mail, the Guardian, and GB News. So, how did the Southport riots start? Focusing on the root cause of the riots, we must understand the events that take place. On the 29th of July 2024, a knife attack occurred at a Taylor Swift-inspired yoga and dance class, killing 3 girls, pictured there in the collage there. 7-year-old Elsie Dot Stancombe, 6-year-old BB King, and 9-year-old Alice Da Silva. What transpired afterwards was several accounts of misinformation online, notably from Tommy Robinson and child minor and wife of Conservative MP for North West Hamptonshire, Lucy Connolly, on X, as they made posts suggesting the perpetrator was a Muslim immigrant, which wasn't the case. He was born in Cardiff. On X, Lucy said in a deleted post, "Mass deportation now. Set fire to all the effing hotels full of the expletive word. For all I care. While you're at it, take the treacherous government and politicians with them. I feel physically sick knowing what these families will have to endure. If that makes me racist, then so be it." Whereas Tommy Robinson said in a tweet on the 29th of July, like a few hours after the catastrophe occurred, "Get there and show your support. People need to rise up. Hundreds of Muslims took to the police station within 24 hours because a violent Muslim who attacked police got arrested and dealt with. Our daughters are being butchered at dance classes. What is it going to take to unify the people of this country against its treacherous, treasonous government?" Now, as we can see, RageBait and misinformation is like on a wildfire from those 2 posts alone. And because of that, as we know, the riots started from then on. Now moving on to part 2, which details my methods and findings from GB News, the Daily Mail and the Guardian. Firstly, I will start with GB News and now give some context to the channel. GB News is a right-wing opinion-based TV and radio channel which was founded by a company called All Perspectives Limited on the 13th of June 2021. The founders of this company are believed to be Andrew Neil, who is pictured there in the bottom right-hand corner, and Mark Schneider, who I couldn't find a picture of, unfortunately. But the website has fostered a huge following amongst anti-immigration and pro-British audiences. Nigel Farage made an appearance on GB News on the 31st of July. telling the audience that there's a lot more to the story regarding the Southport riots. By focusing on the phrase reluctance to tell us the whole truth and using Stuart Hall's reception theory, I analysed the 3 different responses to the video. The dominant or preferred reading is that viewers will understand the producer's message as they share similar beliefs, whereas the oppositional reading is when that viewers will decode and finally get to the root of Farage's intentions, but will completely reject GB News' message as it goes against their beliefs. And finally, the negotiated reading is that viewers can see where Nigel Farage is coming from, but will come to their own conclusion on the riots. I analysed another phrase Farage uses in the video, which is under the watch of our authorities. I underlined the word our because it reflects a tactic called synthetic personalisation, which was formulated by sociologist Norman Fairclough, and essentially it's just inclusive language that politicians use to demonstrate closeness and partnership between them and the people. And by doing this, it creates some sort of parasocial bond between Farage and the GB News viewers, since they have similarities in the way they think and their beliefs. Farage also fuels some sort of rage bait through the phrase, but that's what led to the riots last night. And I think that shows a lack of accountability from the rioters' part, because while it's true that the deaths of the 3 girls led to the riots, he completely ignores the catalyst there, which is the misinformation. For using textual analysis, my findings from GB News' article is that there are several overarching themes, such as innocence, barbarity and doubt, and we can find that in the language that they use, such as youngsters, now 3 girls have died. For the theme of innocence, barbarity, such as the comparative phrase, the most shocking thing that has happened in the country since the Dunblane massacre. And for doubt, we see we don't know the truth of that. While they use emotive language as well, and how they describe how journalists are unable to hold back their tears, for example, they still have to probe for some other truth, and I feel like that's quite disheartening, especially as journalists. We have to face with the facts of a situation. We can't just fuel our audiences into conspiracies, because it doesn't benefit anybody. Whereas in a Daily Mail's article, I focused on the use of photos telling the story. Through textual analysis again, it can be argued that photos explains a media organisation's ideological potential. And we must remember that these rioters claim that they were quote-unquote protesting for the deaths of 3 girls. But there is a question to be raised here. How is discourse about immigration at the heart of their intentions to protest quote-unquote peacefully? And this can be found in the second photo on the left-hand corner, where it's with a slogan that says, "Enough is enough, stop the boats." And that photo is an example of how potent misinformation in the UK can be, as that slogan creates an anti-immigrant and, in this case, Islamophobic rhetoric that is deep-rooted in England's history. And it can also be argued that fascism, which is defined as the ultranationalism of some ethnic, religious and/or cultural variety, and in this case, the white British variety of ultranationalism is overwhelmingly rife in the UK, as people have fallen to the systemic barriers in Britain, and that could be for a multitude of reasons as to why people are angry and upset. But it's important to note that this division doesn't benefit anybody in any shape or form. And I included a mugshot of Lucy Connolly, who was charged for inciting racial hatred online, and that was because I wanted to show the consequences or the negative outcome of spreading misinformation online and thinking that no one's going to see it. So that's my findings from the Daily Mail. In my findings from the Guardian, I found that their news was a lot more objective, as it directly named misinformation as the cause of the riots and directly uses a quote from a Merseyside constable. I also found extrajudicial information which sets the Guardian apart from both GB News and the Daily Mail. Although it's widely known that the newspaper is more left-wing than the latter, they still uphold the duty of reporting news impartially, and that should be a bare minimum for all news organisations in the UK, but unfortunately that's not the case. However, the language used in the article is less emotive than GB News, and I found that humanity is an overarching theme in the article. This can be found in the phrase "was interviewed in a bid to cool tensions," as well as using quotes from Muslims and perceived people affected by Islamophobia. This is the second page of my findings. I found that I wanted to emulate a lot of features from The Guardian in my work, compared to GB News and Daily Mail. Now we are on part 3 of my presentation, which details the writing process of my article. The main objective I wanted to fulfill as a student journalist was to remain impartial. I wanted to demonstrate the facts from the beginning up until now. As I drew works from The Guardian and GB News, I combined a melting pot of features used in their publications to put in my own piece for my blog. In my article, I used clear and concise language that was factual, but demonstrated my stance on the riots and what transpired before, during, and after them. I structured my article as a timeline of events, which was similar to The Guardian's article. Since the riots have passed, the majority of my long-form piece was an analysis on the cultural tensions evoked from these events, and questioning if the United Kingdom will fall victim to the division, such as fascism. I also analysed the political climate of the country as well. I have shared my article on both professional and personal accounts, such as my LinkedIn, my Twitter, my WhatsApp and Instagram accounts. So far, my reactions have been positive. I even had some critiques on elements of my article, such as the facial recognition technology used by Met Police. One of my responses suggested that the technology is being used targeting people coming from non-white ethnic backgrounds instead of the white people causing disorder in society, and this to further discuss the current state of the United Kingdom's political and cultural climate. Here, and those are my reactions there. I have more reactions, but I couldn't fit all of them on the page. And here are my references. Thank you so much for listening.